There are two questions specifically related to liberalization. One is explain the impact of liberalization reforms in exacerbating economic inequalities in India, right? And there is another question that talks about the differences between economic reforms taken up in India during 1980s and that of those during 1990s, right? Uh, these are more of our textbook-based questions, right? You have a general textbook which can give you this information. Uh, it's we generally don't come across information regarding these things. Maybe we'll get in current affairs. Sometimes we might learn about economic inequalities, but the reforms, the differences in reforms between 1980s and 1990s, you can find it only in textbook, or if you can read some articles from EPW or somewhere, you'll be able to find it. Right. So when we talk about liberalization reforms in promoting or increasing the inequalities in India, right? This is more of again a question that needs to be supported with data, right? You have to show with data that inequalities have increased or decreased, right? The data shows that economic inequalities in India have increased uh, 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 gigantically when from the time the liberalization reforms were introduced in 1991, right? So we have ended up introducing these reforms because of the economic crisis that we landed up in 1990s. Uh, we have taken up what is called as the liberalization, privatization, globalization reforms, right? And there is this. The reforms actually were more of what we call pro-market reforms, right? We try to open our economy to market forces. We try to give more power to the market. Previously, it was the government which was taking a major share of economic activities in the country. Right now, the country has been really opened up to the full power of the markets. Right. So this is something that you can actually start with a theoretical approach. Also, this question saying market does not always address, right, the problems of the society, right? So markets does not always address the problems of the society, because markets basically work on profit motivation, right? There is something, there is a demand, there is a supply. The market, in the market, the demands are meets the supply, and the market clears, right? Now the problem is that not everybody can benefit through this, right? That is the problem. So what happened in the decade of 1990 till 2003 2004, the inequalities in India have actually increased to a great extent because of implementation of these private liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So we have opened up our country to what is a huge capital investing companies, right? We have opened up our country to big market players. It's called as the big market players, right? Which have what we call as huge economies of scale, right? When you involve in huge production, you have a lot of cost cutting that can happen, right? So all these big market players that entered into Indian economy, right? In one way, they have pushed out the already existing players. Some of them, were being pushed out, and at the same time, so we see the problem of you know inflation, right? That started creeping up in this period of time, where we all have had to spend more money on whatever we need to get. And but most important thing that happened is the big corporates, when the government allowed them to come into the country, they what they did is they gave some kind of benefits, right? Like tax exemptions, giving land and other resources at very, very low costs, right? Because of which, right, this is the primary reason, because of which their profit margins, right, have been very, very high. Their profit margins have gone to extremely high this thing, and because of this, the inequalities, the index of inequality has become, has increased in Indian scenario. It is not like that, people actually went more poor or lost too much money than before, but it is because the big market players, got opportunity to use the resources that are available in India at a far lower cost for their production and distribution purposes, right? That they could amass huge wealth, because of which the economic inequalities have increased, right? So you can argue when in with such questions in this, right now you say the 10% of the wealthiest almost hold 80% of wealth in India, right? The top 10%, right? So you can quote one or two statistics to answer such questions. But this is mostly asking for, what liberalization has done to, to increase these inequalities. That's a very simple question. There was an article in the newspaper regarding this, based on which I had given the question. The author discussed these points as the primary reasons that, it's the fault of the government that inequalities have actually increased.